So Priya Bates, you're the president of Inner Strength Communication, and you consult to CEOs and communications teams and corporations around building strength from the inside out. And so I'm curious, what does it mean for an organization to be on a mission of building inner strength?
It's really about valuing your people at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day. Because inner strength is really understanding that people are at the center, humans are at the center of our experiences. And that in order to drive the results that we want, there's this opportunity that so many organizations miss to really enable. Enable is give people the information they need,
Mm-hmm.
engage, get them involved in the process so that we're hearing their perspectives and their knowledge and their experience, and empower. It means they have some decision making power that so many, our goal or our a real way for me to see that what we've done is successful is when employees do the right things when we're not there. And how,
Mm-hmm.
when we think
Yes.
about our front lines, when we think about office staff who are dealing with each other, when we think about the manager relationship and how they lead their teams, there
Mm.
needs to be consistency. And it
Yes.
should be, I describe it as it's like a thread that weaves from the things we say, our promises, our mission,
Mm-hmm.
our vision, our values, our strategy, to actually how we deliver and create the employee experiences and the brand and the customer experiences that actually help us drive the results we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. So is the organization being like super clear on their purpose and their vision and their mission, and making sure that that's communicated from the top through to the very
Yeah,
front-facing teams in the organization, which is a super big challenge the larger an organization gets.
absolutely. And the word that I've been using a lot lately is the word intentional,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's that we are very intentional about what we say and what we do and how we reinforce that throughout the
Mm.
organization and then are accountable to the results at the end of the day, right? And it's not
Mm.
really good communication and really good results don't happen by accident. They're really well thought out. It's leaders who kind of get it. They
Mm-hmm.
get that we're more than just the products we create. We're actually the promises that we've made, and we actually come through on those promises. That's what creates the
Mm.
connections and the loyalty with brands and organizations.
Mm. And it can't be wishful thinking. It has to be structured and planned and coordinated for it to
Yeah.
actually roll out.
And it can't be one and done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many people feel that we've sent the message, we've created the
Yes.
brochure, we created the video, we created the strategy, and magically everybody knows what they need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not,
Yes.
and so they treat it, I often say, they treat it like a campaign versus
Mm-hmm.
an ongoing conversation.
Got you. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so the campaign is flashy. It's focused on the tactics. It's make sure we get a lot of excitement when we launch something. But what people are
Yes.
looking for is reinforcement. And that conversation is in the back and forth that actually brings those strategies to life in a way
Mm, that's
that's
really interesting.
real.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was reading a quote from Catherine Green, one of my contacts in internal comms, and she was speaking about in the US about $98 billion of revenue spent on training and employee development every year. And within weeks, a lot of that training and development is lost. And I think it was saying that stats was 72% of workers and 61% of the line managers and leaders don't have faith and trust in their strategies or their processes to manage that training. So it's sort of done and lost. And what are the kind of things that organisations are missing, which seems at $98 billion a year there's a lot of money on the table and a lot of impact being lost.
And it's that one and done philosophy. We've created the training, we've checked the box, therefore
Yes.
we've had the results that we thought we were going to get. But here's what happens. You provide training on a code of conduct, for instance, as
Yes.
part of orientation. And then the first thing employees see is that their managers or their leaders or their executives or their peers do not follow the code of conduct. And those same individuals get promoted or highlighted for not following the rules. That speaks a lot louder than any training that was done. Whereas you could also have the opposite happen. You've created the training, but then what you've incorporated is reinforcement of the actions that were connected to the training. That is what good looks like. And you
Got you.
actually
Yeah.
put on the pedestal those people who are following suit. And you tell people about it. It's not happening in the background. You're actually sharing stories of what I used to say strategy in action and values in action, mission in action, vision in
Yes.
action, purpose in action, all of that stuff. That story is reinforced through through the whole employee life cycle, so that people see it not only in the words that you shared during that one and done training, but in the reinforcement and actions and words that happen afterwards, because it
Yes.
happens a little bit at a time through, based on that consistency that we're seeing.
So there needs to be, I guess, strategies in place to understand the stories we're looking for, to find those actions so that we can bring them to the forefront and highlight them. Is that a sort of a structured strategy in place to be able to
Yeah.
develop and find the stories you're looking for?
Yeah. Stories are one piece of it. It's also making sure it's really solid communication in the direction and instruction and operations in the organization. So where do you
Yes.
have a chance to reinforce?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how I'm working on a program right now where we've helped an organization create a new set of values. And as well as I do, there's more organizations that have values that all sound the same. They aren't
Yes.
well defined. They're words on a website or words on a wall or words on a poster. And they've introduced people to them. They've and never really talked about it afterwards. Again, magic. It's supposed to be the values, but it isn't intentionally reinforced in any way. And so, one of the
Yes.
things that this organization has asked me to do is help them embed it so that it lives beyond I think it was 25% recall of the last set of values that nobody really understood. Right. So,
Yes.
we're sitting there and saying, okay, this is what it looks like in processes. What it looks like in programs. This is what it looks like in policies. Where does
Yes.
what we're trying to deliver and what we're trying to create in terms of actions and behaviors, where does that live when you start looking at recruitment, when you start
Yes.
looking at retention, when you start looking at recognition? Where
Yes.
do those live in those everyday moments that matter? And then we train our managers. We highlight, we ensure that it's what we have this opportunity to really think of what we do operationally.
Yes.
It's not just the fluff. It's not just the bow that we put on things, because sometimes you put a bow on a package and there's nothing inside it,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
We
That's a
want to
beautiful
make
analogy.
sure, right? Like we want
Yeah.
to make sure that what's inside actually works. And that when we think of communication, we think of all of communications, what we say, what we do, how we feel. And
Yes.
we're thinking about it so that we say, these are these moments where we can reinforce it. We can,
Absolutely.
if we're talking values, we actually use a values-based hiring process. So we're actually asking questions that are aligned to the values. We do a values-based recognition process. So people always see that those values are being reinforced in the way that we want them delivered. We use that same values-based program to do reviews, performance reviews, so that we're
Yeah,
having
beautiful.
an honest conversation about it on a regular
Yes.
basis. Right? Like that's the piece that we really, and we need the resources to be able to do that level of work.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
every leader should have a team that's helping them think through that. Or hire a consultant like us to come in and help
Exactly.
them think about it
Of
too.
course. That's such an interesting project. Like when you get into values and helping an organization define their values, it's 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 really hard to kind of put into words, but it's kind of like the critical thing, which is foundational. You got your purpose within why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing, but if you don't have the values to glue that together and turn up, it feels like that's like the guardrails that keeps us all aligned to our purpose, and also that's going to be experienced on the outside only if the inside are delivering it. So,
Absolutely.
as our brand promise, we might be talking about our values and saying this is what we believe in, what we do, but if the team aren't buying into it, you're not going to get the experience as a consumer of that organization's services or products.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've worked, Brendan, for companies that do this really well, where everything just feels connected and you feel part of the solution. You feel part
Yes.
of, there's an incredible sense of pride with those organizations that have those strong cultures. And there's strong cultures are usually based on strong values that are reinforced.
Yes, yeah, and it comes back to when you've got those values in place, that's when your team are going to turn up and do the work when they're not being watched to do the work, or they don't need
Exactly.
complete. They can make decisions within that value base and know they're probably making the right decision for the organisation.
Absolutely.
And you talk about inclusion within an organisation. I guess this is where all the values also interrelate with inclusion. And we sort of got the diversity, equity, inclusion. That has to play a really powerful part within an organisation. And then it's like you're talking about is not just talking the talk, but you've got to walk the walk. And I
Absolutely.
think this is a really interesting topic because it feels like there's two camps. There's a camp that sort of want to exclude the conversation about the DE and I, and those that back it. And personally, I'm a backer, and also I'm late to the party. I'm sort of learning more about what it means to be diverse, inclusive, have equity. So I'm keen to have a conversation around those topics and break it down a little bit as well, and how that sort of
Sure.
builds into an organisation's inner strength and its values. So you've worked in this space for quite a while. What does it mean to you for an organisation to be on that mission of being a diverse organisation?
So when I talk about, Brendan, I wrote a book with a co-author, Advita Patel, and it's called Building a Culture of Inclusivity, Effective Internal Communications for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So for those
Beautiful.
internal comms folks, or even anyone out there, it's a great read, and we really talk about what those things mean. What does diversity, equity, inclusion mean? But we also talk about why it's important and where there's success to be had. And we provide a lot of case studies. And for us as both Advita and I as internal communication professionals, we've also always been focused on business success, right? Like
Yes.
ultimately, it's never been like the diversity and equity, inclusion, or business success. We actually think they're connected in a very, very real way. But one of the things that we talk about, which we're quite pleased, given all of the chaos around DEI that has started in the American administration and then kind of spread around the world, is that we could stand by everything we said in the book, even though we wrote that book in 2020. So it really is, it really was about not creating diversity, equity, and inclusion for the sake of checking boxes. Because we saw a lot of organizations become very performative about it after the murder of George Floyd. You know, we had the black boxes, we had the rainbow flags, we had all of those symbols. Here in Canada, the orange shirts for truth and reconciliation, and those are great opportunities to engage employees in something that helps us talk about what we stand for. But there needs to be some meat behind what we're doing. We have to be more than performative. And so one of the things we talk about is I want to see representation. Now, what representation means when I talk about representation is that you as an organization, your leaders throughout your organization, our communication professionals in our organizations are actually representative of the colleagues on the front line, the communities in which we operate, and the customers we serve. Now, that means that what that looks like in a certain town in Australia or in India or in Africa or southern US or in New York City or a multicultural metropolis like Toronto, which is where I live, is very different based on the scope of your company. Are you a global organization?
Yes.
Do you have a lot of, are you in a town where there's a lot of diversity on your front lines? Right? So I'd rather start with the data, which is I would like every communication professional out there to start with their organization and ask them those three questions. What does diversity look like? And big diversity.
Yes.
Not only race, gender, talk about maybe it's language. Depending on where you're like all of those demographics, ability.
Yes.
Right. If you have a large senior population, right? Like, so age,
Yes.
you know, so all of those things that you would include, even religion in some cases, people are having a lot of conversations about that. But really thinking about if really understand who your audiences are, the communities are, the customers are, because if those voices are not being heard at the decision-making table, you're missing something. Right? So when I talk about enable, engage, empower, how can you do that if you do not have the right voices and the right perspectives?
Yeah. You're missing a trick if you're not connecting with your stakeholders. Yeah.
And we look at exactly.
Yeah.
So what my fear is that there's a lot of blinders on. People are worried about the rhetoric and they're worried about being called woke or whatever it is.
Yes.
I do want people to wake up because the world is changing. The world is changing. We're starting to hear words like the global south and the global majority. Demographics are changing. And at some point, if you're ignoring what's happening, you're going to be left behind. And I truly believe this. And we're seeing signs. So we hear what the media wants and social media wants us to see. But we're actually seeing huge signs that things are changing. Look at some of the most popular TV programs and movies that are out there.
That's right. That's right.
Let's look at the music we listen to. Let's look at, where we're getting our inspiration. Let's look at the talent that we're starting to see that's in a global marketplace.
There's more of a universal consciousness coming through.
There is.
It's going to get to a mass where it's a beautiful thing. It already is a beautiful thing, and it should be celebrated and recognised, and it makes good business sense.
And I think we're
organisations that get it those organisations that get it, they're going to thrive. And what's some examples?
Organizations and individuals.
Yes.
Organizations and individuals. There's a few companies that have done some really interesting things. I love to point at Lululemon in Canada, good Canadian company, and just the crisis they had several years ago, where it was their CEO, president, founder, Chip Wilson, who there was a whole bunch of controversy about the fact that they had chosen to only make sizes for athletic bodies, what they called deemed athletic bodies, that their product wasn't for everyone. And it was such a backlash that he ended up having to step down. And then it's been interesting to watch what the organization has done since. It's expanded its line. It has created, it made a real intentional effort from a DEI perspective. The numbers for that organization are off the charts right now. They've got storefronts around the world. They've really redefined the whole category, and they just hired recently their first female CEO in the history of the company. Which is amazing. Like that's their target audience, right? So it's just really like you're starting to see that those decisions that they made in a crisis where they weren't doing things right actually come back and benefit the organization.
Yes.
In a real way,
like
the numbers are incredible.
And that could have been a corporate complete disaster. Nearly unrecoverable. So for the team to be able to come back from that is really impressive.
Absolutely. Now I was a little spoilt. I've always worked with some great organizations. So one of my jobs was working for Canada's largest grocer. It's actually Canada's largest private sector employer, 150,000, now 200,000 employees across Canada.
Yes.
Now people are arguing about grocery prices, so sometimes they're not our favorite right now, but there's grocery prices that are high across the board. But what was really interesting with working with the organization is before we started talking DEI, in any real way, we actually created programs that were that in retrospect, I realize was DEI done right. So we actually wanted to help our store managers across Canada, 1,000 stores across the country, understand the demographics in the cities where they operated. So the one thing about the grocery industry is they have a ton of data. Love their data. Year over year, day over day. Everything. How you did last week versus how you did next week. Which categories perform better. Like that's just the way a store manager will work. But we added to that Canadian census data. So you're going to now, if you're in a town in Brampton, Ontario, or you're in a town in in Newfoundland, you are going to get the demographic census data for what's happening within a certain radius for you. The company was going to provide that. And once you understood what the demographics were, like from a racial perspective, you could actually choose products for your store that would perform better because it was addressing a need in the community. Like it was just, and we never said DEI. We just said, this is a great way to do business because you're trying to understand your customers, the communities where you operate, so that you can make better decisions. And then they started hiring workers who actually spoke various languages that were consistent with that demographic data. Like, wow, it was just beautiful. And it it was measurable. We could measure the results of what was happening from a business perspective in those communities. Was absolutely it was just incredible. Like that's the background that I had a chance to work with, which wasn't this separate arm's length relationship with some team that gets no resourcing. It was actually embedded in the business operations.
A sensible business, and it's good for the community. It's good for the front line. It's good for the whole organisation because they're aligned to their stakeholders again, and another organisation doing so well. And you talk about people first. and um, and situations where organizations might be going through big change, like might be diversification, acquisition, things like that, which can be really disruptive. And organizations often kind of get it wrong. What's an example of an organization that may, or how can an organization change that from a challenging situation to really a positive outcome?
I've got so many projects that I've worked on that have sat exactly in this space.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's we don't think about the strategic process enough.
Mm.
Creating a strategic communication and change plan. That
Yes.
really goes through those steps, right? Like the steps we talk about.
Yeah.
Let's do a stakeholder analysis. Who are we talking to? What? Don't paint everyone with one brush. What do we want them to know? What does this organization look like
Mm.
before, during, and after this merger
Yes.
or this change? And let's set expectations so people at least trust that we're giving them the goods. And that could
Yeah.
be, the goods could be good, it could be bad, it could be ugly. But we're having honest conversations with them as we're dealing with those changes. That we
Yes.
understand what their perspectives are, we understand what their fears are, that we're actually having a back and forth and we're listening so that we
Mm-hmm.
can drive the changes that we want to see. So an example, um, uh, with that same grocery retailer, I worked on a fairly large acquisition. We acquired the largest pharmaceutical company, so another 1,000 stores,
Wow.
and a head office, and it was a real surprise, right? Very material. And so literally you have a weekend because yeah, I found out Friday night and we were announcing on Monday and the deal hadn't
Oh,
even
wow.
closed till Sunday night. So
Yeah.
so we were at least like, first of all, what a privilege as an internal comms person to be brought in, because that's still considered
Mm.
early when you've got something
Yes.
that material that is, that they keep under wraps for as long as they can because they don't want anything to leak. And it was, I remember working through that program, having been through, I sat on the integration team for the HP Compact merger years before
Mm-hmm.
and learned a lot from that process. And the key for us was we couldn't treat both sides of the organization the same. There's a
Yes.
very different feeling of being the acquiring organization versus the acquired
Mm-hmm.
organization. So if you're giving
Mm.
the celebratory messaging to one organization, the other organization is in shock and they
Mm-hmm.
are thinking this
Yes.
is a horrible thing. So you
Yeah.
have to really manage your tone and your how you approach those messages. You need to address the fears differently. We actually
Mm.
had to even think about from a product level perspective, how the one side it was going to be worried about what's going to happen to our food business, and the other side was going to
Mm-hmm.
worry about what happens to our pharmacy business, who's going to lose jobs. Right. So as soon
Absolutely. Yeah.
as it
Mm.
really was about making sure we provided
Mm.
information, what's happening to whom and when, and then kept them informed as changes happened. So
Yeah.
it was really important. The launch went extremely well. I remember the president on the other side saying he'd never seen employee communications happen so smoothly. And
Nice.
that was great hearing it from the side that was being acquired
Mm.
and
Mm. That's
really
probably even most
managing
important,
it.
right?
Exactly.
Mm.
And essentially our role is to limit disruption because we want people to continue being focused. So not only do we tell them, here's what's happening, here's what we know right now, here's what we're going to tell you when we have more information. And by the way, we are going to let you know as we learn it ourselves because we're figuring this out together. Right.
Mm.
And there's that
Yes.
opportunity, that commitment that we're going to get back to them, that commitment that they're going to hear updates as it happens,
Mm. It,
and that relationship that's built as a result.
that's nice. And are you seeing from your, I guess, relationships in the internal comms space and at your larger corporate levels, are you seeing internal comms being brought to the boardroom table more proactively now? Is that trending? Is there more understanding around the importance of getting that input early in these big decisions?
It depends. I have to admit that we're still complaining about the same things 30 years later that I was hearing like when I started my career. We don't have the seat at the table. Part of that is driven by the fact that especially organizations that are growing,
Yes.
they kind of go they hear that they need communication and they automatically jump to tactics and they jump to
Yes.
let's get the most junior person to start providing a newsletter or plan a town hall. And I think they've got it backwards. If they actually said, what are
Yes.
we trying to do? Who do we need to engage? How do we create a plan with senior support to get there? And maybe that senior support is a consultant who comes in and helps you at least create the strategy so you know what resources you need. You know, but
Yes.
the best success I've seen is even if they hire in-house, they hire senior first to work on what's the strategy, why do we exist, before they start working on the tactics. The minute you approach it with tactics, you're like 10th down the line after all the
Yes.
decisions and conversations have been made, and then you never can get there because you're the order taker. You're not the person who's actually helping advise. And that comes from hiring somebody junior who doesn't have anybody to help them learn how to be more strategic. They don't
And I
have the
think that's
confidence.
Yeah, I think that's where this conversation is really the focus point. Is it's around strategy, not tactics. It's about stepping
Exactly.
back early, looking at the organisation at a very professional and deep level. And as we started off talking about policies, we're actually literally last week reviewing my code of conduct policy within the organisation, and these are all areas where it's not tactical. It's actually in the
No,
fabric of the organisation.
it is. And we need to understand enough to make those recommendations. It's not communication
Yes.
creating the policies, but communication may be able to highlight that there's a a disconnect between what we're saying and what we're doing and what we're reinforcing. That there needs to be a more alignment between the different parts of the organization.
Yes, yeah. So feedback loops will be critically important at different points within the organisation to make
Absolutely.
sure that what you're aiming to achieve is actually achieving its goals. And even before you're ready to achieve anything, just understanding your perspectives as a benchmark. So is that something that you help facilitate for your clients?
It's absolutely the first step, right? And some
Okay.
clients, it's really interesting. It's amazing how many organizations will come to me with a tactic, right? They need something, and then my first response is, let's talk to your employees first and let's connect the
Yes.
dots. And I may not get that job, right? Because if they're in a place where they just want the tactic delivered,
Yes.
that's what they're going to pay for
Yeah.
versus versus somebody who's saying take a step back because I want to make sure you're successful long term. Right? That it actually
Yeah.
addresses a need that we've actually done the stakeholder relations that we're talking to them and they feel they're shaping the
Yes.
strategy. Right? We see this
Yeah,
happen
makes
in
sense.
engagements. But I don't know if this is the case, Brendan, in Australia. But I always joke around that we do these biannual or every few years we do the engagement survey, right?
Yes.
And then they have all of these things that the engagement survey has created a wealth of information, especially in the comments, of real issues that employees have with management, with disconnects, with all these things that need to be addressed. And then what
Yes.
we end up doing is providing the foosball table or the picnic tables because that's the easy thing to do and doesn't actually get to the root of the real
Gotcha.
issues with engagement, right? And those things last only so long.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where if we don't actually listen and we try and we actually address the lowest, the easiest thing to do versus, and I don't mind, like I want to have 3 quick wins, things we can do quickly, but then let's pick 1 or 2 things that we're going to work long term. Not everything.
Yes.
We're not going to boil the ocean. We're going to
Yes.
pick a few things and then we're going to actually help improve those things. And we get credit for that. We get
Yeah.
we,
Makes
we
sense.
we earn credibility with that. We earn trust, not for solving everything, but solving that one key issue.
Yes, that's right. And I was reading a post that I think you might put on LinkedIn over this last week about firefighters getting all the praise. I thought it was very well positioned versus the work we do behind the scenes. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts around that?
I think we've just got a culture, and this is a global culture. I think this applies everywhere in the world and in every organization, that we're much more likely to reward the hero that swept in and saved the day after
Yes,
things became chaotic, after the dumpster fire,
that's right.
versus actually praising the people who avoided that fire from happening in the first place, right? You think about the cost of the firefighter having to come in
That's right.
versus the lack of cost if we just did things right in the first place. If we set expectations, if we help people manage through those changes.
Yes.
It's like when I do my job really, really well, what do
No
people
one
think?
knows.
Leaders think their
Nobody
strategies were
knows. Yeah.
brilliant. They
Yeah.
everybody thinks that they were awesome. HR did the right things. All the
Yeah.
IT had the right products. Finance made the right decisions. Everything runs smoothly because it runs as planned because we included employees through that process and kept them informed.
Yeah.
But nobody says it's communication, right? Like that. Well, but we're kind of behind the scenes making sure that everybody's consistent, everybody's aligned. We're making sure that people are informed, that we're
Yeah.
getting ahead of the crisis.
That's
Like
right.
you think about, I remember talking to an organization going back to the DEI conversation. So many of the crises organizations are experiencing, you could probably say quite confidently are DEI related, right? They are about behavior, inappropriate behavior
Yes.
with somebody, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah. Not
right?
understanding each other. We didn't really
Right.
understand each other or work it out or yeah.
Yeah. So much. If we actually did that work in the first place, we actually helped people feel included. We helped encourage
Yeah.
conversation and dialogue. We may never get to a point where we're having to deal with this crisis, and
Yes.
that would be so
Yes.
much cheaper to do it right in the first place than wait till everything's
Yeah,
gone
totally
wrong.
agree. Burnt down into ashes and we're just sweeping up and starting all over again.
Exactly. Like it's
Yeah.
so costly.
On the DE and I conversation, I guess the part of that I would like to learn more about is the actual equity and understanding that, because I think that's probably out of the DE and I probably the most challenging part to comprehend and understand. How does equity work in that equation, and how does that sort of talk to me how it works and sort of what the equity part plays and how that sort of makes a difference.
Equity is back to that word intentional I talked about. That we really understand if we were looking at representation, one of the things I started with, and we said to ourselves, there are the leaders of this organization are not representative of
Yeah.
the people in like the colleagues, communities, and the customers. Then equity may mean that we're actually looking to lift somebody up in that role,
Got you.
right? We
Yes.
may want to see 50%, a 50-50 split from a female, from a gender perspective. Equity means the same person doing the same job, different people doing the same job are paid the same
Yes.
for doing that job, right? Because we don't have that either.
Yeah.
like gender pay equity is a big issue, especially from a gender perspective. So
Totally
it's
agree. Yeah.
really giving people opportunities and looking for people in the right places, because you have to, in order to create equity, you can't use the old systems to create new results. I love that. Is it Einstein who said, you know, what's the word? It was the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and
Douglas.
over again and expecting a different
Yes,
result.
that's
That's
the one.
that's
Yes.
right. That's the one where we can't
Mm,
do the same things. We actually need to create opportunities to
mm.
create to ensure that we get the representation we want. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I
equity
think.
is that you may help somebody, you know, get more access. The truth is, if you leave the systems leave the systems as they are, the systems are not equitable.
Yes.
They don't work
Yeah.
for and I said this earlier today. I said the systems today don't work for everyone. And then I
Mm,
had this light bulb moment. The truth is the systems don't work for anyone. Like,
mm-hmm.
look at what's happening in the US. Look at what's happening with our political leaders around the
Yes.
world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There is not equity. There's not representation,
Correct.
and they're not working for us.
Correct. Yeah.
We need to change the systems in order to change the outcomes.
Mm, mm.
And the
I really.
outcomes are ones that
Yeah.
are good for everyone.
They are. I'm really happy I asked the question, and because I think, as you mentioned earlier on, there was the box ticking, you know, there's the black box, there's the rainbow box, and I think that's where the perception of equity was, is like you have to tick boxes because this is how it's supposed to look. And through this conversation, what I'm understanding much deeper is that you need to understand the representation of your stakeholders. Who are they? What do they look like? Where do they live? How old
To
are
put
they?
yourself at
What are
an
their religions?
advantage.
To put yourself at an advantage. So the equity is actually about representation, an equitable representation of who
And you
your
may need to
stakeholders are,
change, yeah.
who your customers are, so you can give yourself the advantage. And this is probably the first conversation I've had where actually the penny's dropped, and it makes a lot more sense, and it's good for everyone.
Yeah.
It's strategic.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want that in an
And Brendan,
organisation?
here's the thing. I don't want you hiring somebody who does not qualify for a position, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
we've had a lot of conversations about meritocracy, but we
Mm-hmm.
are not in a meritocracy right now. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you actually compare, when you look at education levels, when you look
Mm-hmm.
at, experience, when you look
Yes.
at what somebody brings to the table, you wouldn't end up with the leadership teams, the communication teams that we have today.
Yes.
You wouldn't,
Correct. Yes.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
truth is people hire people who look like them. And
Yes.
today, Brendan, this is what? It's April 28th, 2026. And
Mm-hmm.
I got an email from the International Association of Business Communicators, my association. I'm a fellow of the
Yes.
association. It was advertising special interest groups, 5 different special interest groups that were doing special events. International organization,
Mm-hmm.
and all 5 speakers for those special interest groups were white.
They got that wrong.
How?
Yeah.
Like, how
Yeah, I
is that
don't know.
possible?
Yeah.
That is a lack of equity. That is a
Mm.
system that does not work and people don't see it and nobody questioned
Yes.
it. It
Mm-hmm. It
says
does.
there's a
It does.
disconnect. What do you mean we're an international organization? The best we could do. I don't
Yeah.
think so. There are so many perspectives we should be hearing internationally
Mm-hmm.
as the world changes.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the decision makers are getting people who look like them, and even those decision makers who are like diverse, are doing the same thing. We're kind of falling into bad habits and
Yes.
then not thinking about the impact of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no excuses for that.
Yeah.
And
Totally
we're
agree.
all at a disadvantage for that. It's not helping us.
Absolutely.
Not as communication professionals, not as business professionals, not as people who want to see the results. It's not, I can't imagine that's going to help. And I do not want to, every single one of those individuals are experts. They're good at what they do. But are we really looking at representation, and are we, so equity would have meant we were looking for a variety that we may not have looked for.
Yes.
In terms
Yeah.
of perspectives.
Yep. And then there'll be the ideas that we may receive. Not that those presenters were unqualified, they were super qualified, but there'll be perspectives and ideas that will come through from diversified presenters.
We're
that will
missing
bring another
it.
angle
We're
to it.
missing, yeah. We're missing things, and it's putting us at a disadvantage. I don't want to be put at a disadvantage. I don't want to be talking about the same thing 30 years from now.
No, me neither. And you were recently
I won't be here 30 years from now, but
I think you will be. I think I might just put that in my diary now for 30 years from now for another podcast follow-up. You were recently in Brussels for a communications event talking about the future of communications. How did that event go? What was some of the topics about where we're heading?
you know what? Again, the same. We had, I introduced a topic. I don't know if you saw this, Brendan, that I introduced a topic about how can we be more intentional about about diversity. It was just diversity. Be more intentional.
Yes.
And no one showed up to discuss that topic. And I think that tells us a lot. So I'm obviously with the wrong organizations because, and that's what I think that was the light bulb for me. It's like if the same systems aren't willing to build something new, I need to work with the people who are willing to move things forward. Because so we had some good discussions, obviously conversations about AI, how it's impacting communication professionals. We had some good conversations about dealing with the chaos around the world. But I really believe we need the perspectives around the table so that we can approach employees in a way that we're more confident. And we need to listen, right? Like listening to those folks. Even if you don't have the diversity on your team, the representation on your team, are you listening to the perspectives of the people in those communities so that you know if your messaging and your programs are going to land? Are they part of the solution? Right? Like there are ways to do this, but it all has to be intentional. And when nobody shows up to that conversation, gets me a little worried. Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
About the state of professional communications.
Yeah. I was having dinner at my partner's place in the weekend, and her daughter had a topic. There was a topic brewing at the table, but it wasn't being said. And my partner's daughter said, "Is there something that we need to talk about at the table and no one's bringing it up?" And that was like, she knew that there was something that she wanted us to ask her, and it was like her way of saying, let's open a conversation that no one wants to talk about. And do you have those sort of conversations with CEOs and ask some difficult questions? And what is it at the table that you ask?
I would like to have more conversations like that. One of the things when I was in house, one of my strategies, if you will, is I would always have breakfast with my kids. I had a nanny. When I was in house, I was working 60 to 80-hour weeks because it was a large company. There was a lot going on. There was almost a crisis every single day because of the nature of the business we were in. So I'd spend the morning with my kids. I'd always be there at bedtime, and my husband was very involved with managing kids, and we had a full-time nanny at home. But I would always stay a little later, and the reason I'd stay later is the executives were there, and I'd get a chance to have these one-on-one conversations with them. Okay. More likely after 5 o'clock, so between 5 and 6:30, and we could have those conversations about what keeps you up at night. What's the thing you're most worried about? What are you
Yes.
afraid is going to happen?
Mm.
Right? And I used to always, my desk was right outside the executive offices. So I'd always see people go on. So it was really nice because people would always say hello. It was a lovely company, great culture. So people would always say hello. You'd get to know all kinds of things about them. But you'd get these great conversations and being able
Mm.
to talk to executives and just have those one-on-ones, that are a little
Yes.
bit more casual. It's not sitting around a board table,
Mm.
but it's the
Yeah.
hallway conversations that were just
Yeah.
really cool. I love those. I
Yeah.
love when we can say, and I always I say to my clients, which are often the HR and communication leaders. Sometimes it's the executives. Often I do get a lot of execs as well, but it's really interesting that I'll sit there and say, I'm going to put all the stuff in this report, even the stuff you're afraid to talk about, so you could
Mm-hmm.
point at me and said, Priya said this
That's
in the
good.
report,
Yeah.
that you've got it articulated. And
Mm.
it's always, here's what we're afraid is going to happen if we
Yeah.
go in this direction versus that direction.
Mm.
Right. And asking a lot of questions about what's the worst case scenario
Yes.
in this situation?
Yeah.
What does
Mm.
success look like? How do we want people to feel when we're done?
Yes. Yeah.
What do,
Those are the
and how do we
conversations.
measure it?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Which is what I love, data and measurement, of
Yeah,
course. So, yeah.
exactly. Like for me, when
Mm.
we did a huge material reorganization, we're letting go 700 staff from head offices, and literally, when you have something that big, you've got press all
Mm-hmm.
standing outside because
Yeah.
they want to see who's walking outside and who's going to really, let it out on the
Front
company
this.
because they've just been let go because they're
Mm.
walking out with their
Mm-hmm.
boxes, right? And we had no one talk to the press, even though they were positioned at every exit of our parking
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
That means a lot, not because we told them not to, but it's because they understood what we were doing and why, and we treated
Mm-hmm.
them with respect through the process,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
like think about measuring success that way.
Mm. Yeah.
So with real measures that can say we imagine the worst case scenario and we actually got ahead of it.
Yeah, beautiful. It shows that the organisation had integrity and authenticity through that process of engaging with those staff. Mm.
And we were
And
honest and we were vulnerable and we kind of told them exactly why, what was happening, what decisions had to be made, right? And
mm.
followed that throughout the entire process. What the executive said on what was happening, what was said externally from a press perspective, and then what the manager conversations and HR conversations look like. Straight
Yes.
line,
Yeah, nice.
right? It's
Yeah,
all
beautiful.
connected.
Yeah. And so I read, because I've been stalking your posts. I don't know if you've realised this, but I saw your
That's
husband
funny.
is preparing to, yeah, your husband's preparing to retire shortly, which I
I
think is
talk
quite
about far
exciting for
too
him.
much on my LinkedIn posts, is what they're telling
You
me.
do. Well, I like it. I like it. It keeps it really human and really interesting. And I thought that's really interesting. And you mentioned about how you have, I guess, changed your perspectives as a communications consultant and professional over time. And I thought it might be good just to get your perspective on how your career has evolved you and where you feel you're at in your career mindset at the moment.
I love what I do. I really, I love consulting and I love working with a variety of organizations. I always say that like communication is our superpower. We use
Mm.
our communication expertise to solve real business problems, right? So it's not just
Yeah.
about communication for communication's sake. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what I've done over a 30-year plus career is fine tune those frameworks and processes and how I approach things. And they work. And so I
Yes.
feel like as I'm, as my husband's winding down, I feel like I still have about 10 years at least left in me. But
Oh yeah,
to,
definitely.
I want to really spend the time to teach people how to do and think like I do, to deliver in a very different way so that we're not talking about the seat at the table.
Mm.
Forget 30 years from now, 5 years from now. I want
Yes.
to help those leaders and those communication professionals who are ready to do things
Mm.
differently to
Yeah.
actually deliver with real influence and impact. Because I know
Mm.
what's possible. But what I've also learned is people need to be ready. And that's not everybody. And
Yes.
I always felt that I needed to help everyone get there. I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
changing my mind. I'm ready to let the people who don't get it stay behind. I'm
Yes.
actually going to only
Yes.
focus on those ready because we can
Because
work
there's a lot of
together to
energy put
really
in.
create magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is magic. What we
Absolutely.
do
Yeah.
is magic.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
I've
I can
seen
see that.
organizations go from completely chaotic to top 100 employer, most admired corporate culture, you know, and it's easy when things
Mm.
are working, when everything is connected,
Mm.
it sure feels easy. It's easy.
Yes.
There's not
Yes.
the tension. And even when you're going through tough times, right? This is separate from the world is chaotic and the systems have all changed. We can actually have each other's back. We can actually
Mm.
take care of one
Yes.
another and stay focused while
Yeah.
all this craziness is going on around us.
Mm. It's really nice talking with you and you experiencing your experience of, like you started off talking about the thread that comes through and holds the organisation together. And like you just said here is that you can go into organisations which are experiencing chaos. You spoke about Lululemon, and that when you've got the experience of understanding on where you can start to put the foundations of change in the organisation, any organisation can go through a process to move from chaos to just a harmony with that experience you sort of demonstrate.
Absolutely.
And so my next question for you is, what's your advice for young communicators, particularly in this internal comms space, who are thinking about a career in internal comms? And yeah, what would you sort of pass on to them at this point?
Well, one of my big bugaboos is isn't that a funny word? But it has always been that we have to stop calling ourselves communicators and start
Mm-hmm.
calling ourselves communication professionals, professional communicators, business communicators.
Mm-hmm.
That it's okay, but not just communicators, because everyone's a communicator.
Yes.
And how do we differentiate where we have expertise if we call ourselves exactly what everybody else is? So,
Mm.
professional communication, professional communicator, business communicator has to be part of our language so that we're seeing ourselves as people that add value, aren't just like everyone else, right? I
Got
think
you.
that's important. I think
Mm.
that I think I don't know how old your daughter is. Uh, Mike, how old is she?
She's 17.
She's 17, and my girls are in the same generation, so 21 and
Mm.
23, right? So they're
Nice.
Gen Z, and I think Gen Z is going to change the world. What
Mm.
their perspectives being, first of all, digital natives, never
Mm-hmm.
really understanding, like having technology is like an extra limb for them, right? They just
Yes.
really understand it in a way that we cannot fathom, and they've been taught problem solving. And the
Mm.
tensions that generation has with our workforce is that we're trying to keep things the same while they see what's
Yes.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're talking AI, technology, globalization, all of those things, a world that's become smaller. and their connections are so much more diverse. And I feel like so many that generation is at a point where what I'm seeing my kids' friends doing is if they don't like what they see, they're building it themselves. And that comes from products. They're getting the investments. It's really fascinating to watch. And now with AI, they can actually literally build things themselves without knowing how to code, without having those computer science skills. They can actually build solutions. And so I think that again, they're getting ready to go because they think our generations have all screwed things up for decades. Right?
We've done a good job
We're the reason for all the problems in the world.
And we might not be keeping up with them at the speed they want to move as well.
Exactly. And they're doing it so much faster. I remember a project that one of my daughters had done. And it was an administrative task that she'd been assigned as a job that the administrator in the company hated. And it would take her 40 hours a week to do. And they assigned it to the summer student, who is my daughter. My daughter knows how to code. She knows how to use the tools the way they're meant to be used. She figured she ran a program, a code, to get the same end result that the administrator was doing in 40 hours, and she spent 2 to 3 hours creating the code, and then she'd run it in seconds and take an hour a week to do the same job that the other person did in 40.
That's incredible.
Accurately.
And impressive.
Right? Like that's
possibly more accurately.
Yeah, with less errors. And that was before AI.
Yes.
Right? That was with her coding it herself. Like that, the young people are trying, they're bored because they're able to do our tasks much faster.
So much quicker.
And then so much quicker. And then they're finding their side hustles because they need to do something. They want to keep their minds active.
That's right.
Right. So many, I don't know if you're experiencing the same thing. There's so many things that they're working on because they're just, they know what's possible. And I think they're going to get frustrated when they're being held and told to manage to work within the systems that are not as efficient. So with young people, I would actually say, build it, do things, hang your shingle up. Communications is a great kind of job that you can deliver inside an organization, but you can also offer services, right? The videos that are coming out, like this influencer culture where they know how to create fabulous,
definitely
influential videos that drive traffic, right? So I think that I'd say explore, be creative. So, and if you can't be creative in your day job, do it in your side hustle.
Yes.
Let's see what you've got, because that's what's going to change things.
Bring your game and let's make it happen. And the next 3, 5, and 10 years is going to be seeing the most change we've seen for generations, and it's exciting.
Yes.
What we're about to see.
We're going to get out of the way eventually, so you can really shine.
Yeah, help us get out of the way. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I just want to keep in and be a part of it and experience it. That's the main thing.
Yes, I want to see it because I find it very exciting.
Priya, how will people keep in touch? I'm interested in your book. I think it sounds like a fantastic book to read. And what's the best way of people keeping in touch with you?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. My website is innerstrengthcommunication.com. And also take a look at, I guess I share some things on Instagram, but LinkedIn is really the place. And then the book is available on Amazon. So it's available any place that you purchase online. It's through the publisher is Kogan Page, but you can find it on Amazon.
Oh, fantastic. I think I'm going to go and buy myself the book, have a good read, and I'm looking forward to having future conversations on here with you as well. There's so much more I have to ask. I'd love to talk to you more about technology and so many other topics. But I think this is just a really nice introduction. And thank you for joining me on Creative Expression. We're a young and new podcast channel, and it's really exciting to have someone with your caliber on for this kind of conversation. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And I enjoyed spending the time. We had a great conversation.
Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thanks for watching, and feel free to connect with me on my socials. If there's anything you'd like to ask at any time, you can also contact me on brendan.ralston@actionhq.co. Until next time, stay connected, be creative, and enjoy your day.